If you like it, you got to put a ring on it. Now with these beautiful wheels on here, we need to upgrade the front to be able to handle putting power to them. The front diff has arrived. Well, parts of it. Doing unboxings, this is one of the most functional asses on a car I've ever had. I'm unboxing something very, very special. And special in the fact that it was almost not gonna be here before this major race. Straight from Germany. This is something that really is gonna make this car insane. If you like it, you gotta put a ring on it. That is a ring. Whoa. And this is the penile pinion. And this is the pinion. So this ring and pinion was only available for BMW Motorsports. It's completely useless for the cars that it's meant for. This is a 5.13 gear ratio. That means that for every time this little guy spins, it should be maybe somewhere in here. Yeah, wow, it locked right in. For every 5.13 times that this spins, this big gear here will spin once. So 5-to-1 ratio, essentially. The rotors love that because of the high RPM and low torque. So now that we have this, we now can take the front diff out. We'll service the front diff. You have to get this pinion, the shake weight, that's what it is, it's shake weight, guys. The shake weight pinion, you have to, there's a thrust, that's even worse. God, you have to get this, the correct in and out. God, I can't even do it with a straight face, I can't even think, getting all flustered. You have to shim it this way and that way, and then this one, you actually have to shim this way. Those of you guys that watched the videos of the SEMA build, you know that I used a drill instead of an end mill. So a drill has that 118 degree angle instead of a flat end mill to drill or countersink, counterbore the holes for the wheel bearings. So that, I think, is playing into effect when you see 1,000, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 horsepower, you're starting to see things bend. That's soft aluminum giving away. We're gonna take those out, bore them properly, and also make sure that all the threading on all of the suspension is done right. So this is a 36 mil. I think I'm gonna have to use a impact on this. Oh no, it's just loose. Everything on the front suspension, just to make this very clear out loud, everything gets torqued to spec. I don't know what caught in there. It looks like aluminum or something. Oh, because Isaiah never welded that on. Huh. Oh, and that bolt is loose. He must have made it, bolted it on, and forgot about it. The vast majority of our problems are all right here. This is obviously now one of them that I was aware of, but wasn't aware I would take the upright off. This steering is the scariest. It's just connected on like right there. So that is now free from the steering. Bottom one, we'll just use the bolt that's on it to weld that onto it. I'll start working on uprights while you guys are still working on taking the rest of this out. We'll take a look at the actual threading as well. You look at the threads inside of here, and I'm not the most pleased with that, and that comes from not having this double sheared, which just means basically two places where it holds to it. So I need to weld, this one was actually hitting the brake, which is wonderful. I need to weld this on, or after I put the Heim joint back in, we can weld this back on. And this one's already set up for that. So that's 1, 2, 3 issues. Fourth is the front wheel speed sensor met an untimely death, so I need to have a channel for that. Let's see how this looks. Thankfully they're held in tight. That's a good sign. Yeah, you can see that it goes all the way to here. I actually cut these bolts to the correct length. Yeah, so that lip right inside of there only contacts the bolt on the very outside edge of the head at best. That needs to change. Thankfully we have a manual mill. We don't need the CNC mill for this. Everything else looks good. I actually designed a rotor into this on purpose. I was bored one day before I thought this would actually become a real thing. Let's look at this thread. Not the prettiest at all. So this bolt, I purposely got it right to the right length, right inside of there. But this is the one that's actually holding it in deeply. So I'm gonna have to do something, drill straight through it. Just clean this thing up. These threads are just atrocious. The threads haven't pulled out or anything, it's just that the threading was not done cleanly. And I don't blame the guy that made these. He helped me out in one of the most critical moments of the history of this car. But there's always room for improvement. Yeah. You're so bony. You're a little bony kitty. Okay, sorry, I'll stop. I now put this into the manual mill. We're not going to be using the CNC. We're going to need to use the digital readout on this machine though. So we are going to have to use this form of the Z-axis. So up and down is going to be here instead of using the table. The reason we want to use this is so that way we get all three to the same depths for consistency, with swapping bolts around, whatever the case. They don't have to be the same depths, but that's really old Rob. This end mill was bought by Isaiah after overheating this machine, and I just dropped it, chipped a corner on it. I don't have any bits this wide, so I'm stuck using something smaller and do a little X pattern, and then we'll just mark the depth we go, do that to each. Okay, 0.55, and that's what we'll lock it in there for this one. Very clearly a pain in the ass. Well, it actually turned out better than I was expecting. Thankfully, we're not worrying about this being too hub-centric, the bolt head. I wanted it to be nice and tight, just so it would prevent the bolt from vibrating out, but I actually got all the way around that pretty clean. I just went till I heard it hit the edge. That means I was getting all the way around this ring, and now we have a nice flat bottom there. Not perfect. Nothing I do is, but I also don't want to die. Oh, that is actually really flat looking, exactly as I was hoping. Go back over to the welding table and we'll test this. So these bolts should no longer, oh yes, that was my goal. You can see that difference right there. Much better, it's holding flat. Look at that. With all these flat, I suspect these bolts will actually stick out a little bit from the centerpiece. Right here, that really doesn't stick out much at all. Okay, now with that one in, there we are. Yeah, you see it sticks out just that little bit more than it used to, but still with room for it not to hit the wheel lugs. So we have a proper setup for that now. That is flat. Those bolt heads are actually contacting the entire surface and no longer just the very outer edge like you can see there. So much better for living. Something I have failed to do while editing the videos is introduce each person that you see. A handful of new faces, they're younger guys, all willing to help out, just simply whatever's needed to get the job done. So I want to introduce each of them, and I'm not going to do it in some sort of horrible corporate fashion. Take turns introducing yourselves and tell me one cool fact about you. No, I just want to introduce each of them so that way when you see them, you know why they're doing or what they're doing, why they're helping, and so on. Jason's an old friend, Rotaries, way back in the day, and we still have that same session going through our veins. Chris is one that you've seen quite a bit ever since Barnyard Bash. I actually filmed something where I introduced Chris in a video, and I messed it up completely. Like I stuttered way too much. Oh yeah. Yeah. So he just kind of showed up and has been helping out.
Yeah, I've been here since like
March.
Since March.
Yeah. Very much, jack of all trades, doing anything I need help with. He's learning a lot in the process and becoming very, very helpful. The newest one that made me realize I need to do this, because I was editing the videos, like I don't even know who that is. Just kidding. Andrew is helping me focus on all of the engineering side of things. Build those little stands for the flat bottom. He originally came in just for that, but I think you've been helping out with a lot of the different...
bunch of random shit.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's one last person to introduce. The camera's not floating magically for no reason.
I like to think it is.
Yeah, Joel's been helping out as well. And Joel also primarily focused on helping hold the camera as well as doing the editing. He's also been just helping out around the shop too. And now I'm going to weld this bottom piece. It's a little upside down, it's using an arm held here just so I can use it basically as a jig to weld this piece, this area, and this area. It's just like this one on the top. My skills are coming back. A little frosty, but so I'm gonna have to run a line along this, and then second line to bridge the gap between the two. But that's definitely not going anywhere. Wow. So this is a 210, Dynasty 210. It's an amazing machine, but the 210 essentially stands for 210 amps when you're trying to compare the machines. That's the peak amount of power. This metal, this chunk, was absorbing so much of the heat that I could barely make a puddle when I was trying to melt this specifically in. It was just like, it's almost as if you were holding the pedal at like a quarter and it was just, you know, you haven't made a puddle yet, it's just kind of the surface just sparkling. That was nuts. It took all the machine had to finish that up. That's pretty damn solid. And then there's my work. There's his work.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. All right, one last step. This is just too hot for society. I'm gonna give it a bath. You know what we do is just probably just. I like my aluminum medium rare. Come here. Okay. There you go. Right now, Andrew is actually whipping up a quick design for me over here that solves some of my concerns about the steering piece that we're currently using. So it does look like a flaccid penis, but that's memorable because that little flaccid penis is going to keep the steering connected by hopefully hooking in right here, and then we'll drill a hole through the aluminum and it'll be on both sides. That way this piece can't pull away from this. So this is the fourth and final piece that wants to kill me. We have this, it's all cleaned up, and then Andrew and I got these all finished up. So we're going to weld these on each side. Then drill straight through. We'll probably put some washers or something in there, and the end result will mean no steering pulling out at high speeds or high torque situations. I could do a little 90-degree off of this. I want to have that little overlap, just so I have materials there. So you can see it's actually pretty square to the table, which means both sides are on the right height. I'm gonna weld there and there. The ultimate test though is if it goes on here. I don't mind it being this close, to be honest. Okay, a little bit closer than I was expecting. This is actually pretty critical. I'll go back and melt both sides here. That's actually surprisingly difficult to weld. Maybe in the future we'll bend them or find another solution. This has been a huge load off of my mind. There are 4 major things that honestly could have put my life in danger. There's probably a million on this car, but these are the ones I was aware of. And they were big issues. And this was probably the biggest of them all, is that we have a fail-safe that was truly showing the issue. I mean, would you trust 1,000 horsepower plus to go through 2 bolts when you hit a bump or the steering or whatever? No, I wouldn't. So this now allows us to drill through here. We're safe if we hit steering problems. This is now welded on there, so we've got this double sheared so that can't pull out at speed. I've now flat bottomed all of these holes, so those won't pull out or move over time, so then the wheel bearing comes on an angle and now the tires, so many nice things. On top of all of that, I made that little clearance space for the wheel speed sensor so we can start doing wheel speed, boost by gear, traction control, all those advanced features, because now we're monitoring wheel speed. That's about as close as the outro you guys are gonna get.